If Madden 27 is running poor on your PC, don't buy new hardware yet. I'm gonna show you the settings that can take a low-end system from stuttering and frame drops to a much smoother 60 FPS. And we're starting with the two biggest fixes. Setting number 1, FPS plus resolution. Open Madden 27 settings graphics. First set your frame rate limit to 60 FPS. Then set your resolution to 1920 by 1080 if your PC can handle it. Apply settings. Don't use unlimited just because it sounds better. On a weaker PC, an unstable 70, 55, 48, 62 FPS can feel worse than a locked 60 FPS. Now let's jump into gameplay. Before we're bouncing around with inconsistent frame times, after the change we're sitting much closer to a consistent 60 FPS. If you still can't hold 60, don't worry, the next setting is one of the biggest performance killers. Setting number 2, shadows plus crowd. Open graphics settings, set shadow quality to low, then set crowd quality to low. These are two of the first settings I'd sacrifice on a low-end PC because you're rendering an entire stadium while also trying to keep gameplay smooth. Apply settings. Now go back into gameplay, show side by set or FPS counter. Watch the FPS when the camera pulls back and the entire stadium is visible. If you were getting heavy drops before, these settings can reduce the load and make your frame rate much more consistent. And we're not done yet. If this already improves your FPS, hit like and subscribe because the next settings are going to squeeze even more performance out of your PC. And if you want me to optimize your exact setup, comment your GPU, CPU, and RAM below. Now let's finish the setup. Settings number 3, textures, graphics, texture quality. Next, don't automatically set textures off. Start with on. Textures are different from settings like shadows because they depend heavily on your GPU's available VRAM. If your GPU has enough VRAM, keep textures on. This can give you a much better looking game without the same performance penalty as maxing out shadows or effects. If you're getting stutters or VRAM related problems, turn textures off. But if the game stays smooth, keep it on. Settings number 4, ambient occlusion. Next, find ambient occlusion. Set it to screen space. This setting adds extra shading around players, objects, and surfaces. It can make the game look slightly better, but when you're fighting for every frame, it's not worth sacrificing performance. Look closely at the stadium and players. The visual difference is relatively small. The performance difference can be much more useful on a low-end setup. Settings number 5. Now lower your VFX quality to low, then disable unnecessary cinematic effects like motion blur, depth of field, lens effects, bloom. These effects can make Madden look more cinematic, but you're here to play football, not watch a movie. Turning them down gives your GPU fewer things to process. Setting number 6, cutscene visuals. Here's another setting worth changing. Madden 27 gives you separate cutscene visuals or cinematic graphic options. Set them to low or medium. You don't need your low-end GPU rendering a cinematic broadcast shot at maximum quality. Your goal is smooth gameplay. And if you're already struggling for performance, there's no reason to waste GPU resources on visuals you're only seeing during replays and cutscenes. Setting number 7, VSync. Now let's talk about VSync. Start with VSync off. VSync can help eliminate screen tearing, but it can also introduce additional latency. For competitive games like Madden, responsiveness matters. If you notice terrible screen tearing, test VSync afterward, but start with it disabled and see how your system feels. Setting number 8, Windows Power Mode. Now we're leaving Madden for a second. Open Windows Settings, System, Power and Battery. Set your power mode to best performance. This is especially important if you're playing on a laptop. And if you're on a laptop, keep it plugged in while gaming. Some laptops dramatically reduce CPU and GPU power when running from the battery. That can turn a playable 60 FPS game into a stuttering mess. Setting number 9, close background apps. Next, press Ctrl-Shift-Escape to open the task manager. Look at your CPU and memory usage. Close programs you don't need while gaming. That includes unnecessary browser tabs, launchers, recording software, downloads, and background applications. If you're already using most of your RAM before Madden even starts, you're giving the game less room to work with. Don't randomly terminate Windows processes, just close application you recognize and don't need. Setting number 10, game mode. Next, search Windows for game mode. Make sure it's enabled. Game mode is designed to prioritize gaming workloads and reduce some background activity while you're playing. It isn't going to magically give you 30 FPS, but when you're optimizing a low-end PC, we're looking for every useful improvement. Setting number 11, GPU driver. Now update your graphics driver. For NVIDIA, check the NVIDIA app. For AMD, use AMD software. For Intel, use Intel graphics software. This is especially important with a newly released game. New drivers can contain game-specific fixes and optimizations. After updating, restart your PC, then launch Madden again. Find your bottleneck. Now here's the setting nobody talks about, your hardware bottleneck. If your GPU is sitting around 95 to 100% usage, you're probably GPU limited. In that case, lower resolution, shadows, effects, and graphic settings. But if your GPU is only around 60 to 70% while your CPU is heavily loaded, you may be CPU limited. And that's important because lowering graphic quality won't magically fix a CPU bottleneck. Instead, close background programs, reduce CPU heavy settings like crowd detail, improve cooling, or consider a hardware upgrade if your processor is significantly below the game's requirements. The 60 FPS preset. So here's the preset I'll start with. Resolution 1920 by 1080, FPS limit 60, VSync off, textures on, shadows low, crowd low, ambient occlusion, screen space, effects quality low, cinematic effects low, cutscene visuals low, Windows power mode, best performance, game mode on. This gives you a strong performance focused starting point without making Madden look terrible. If you're still below 60 FPS, still dropping below 60, don't panic. Make changes in this order. First, drop the resolution from 1080p to 1600 by 900. Test it. If that's still not enough, try 1280 by 720. Then turning textures off if you're running out of VRAM. And finally, reduce any remaining visual quality settings. Don't change everything at once. Change one setting, test, then move to the next. That way you'll know exactly what is affecting your performance. Important, don't chase a number. And remember, 60 FPS isn't useful if your frame times are terrible. A game bouncing between 45 and 75 FPS can feel worse than a stable 60. So don't obsess over seeing a massive number in your FPS counter. What you want is consistency, smooth camera movement, responsive controls, and minimal stuttering when the game gets busy. That's the real goal. And that's how you optimize Madden 27 for low-end PC. Start with the FPS cap and shadows, then optimize crowd quality, textures, effects, windows, drivers, and background applications. If this guide helped you get closer to 60 FPS, subscribe because I'll be making more Madden 27 performance guides, controller settings, graphic optimizations, and PC tips. And comment your CPU, GPU, RAM, and FPS. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Alright guys, have a great day.